Chargeable.
Chargeable.
Advice will be given as a chargeable service. Chargeable assets.
Charge account.
Charge account.
Charge card.
Charge card.
Charged.
Charged.
The charged atmosphere in the room. A highly charged debate.
Chargé d'affaires.
Chargé d'affaires.
Charge hand.
Charge hand.
Charge nurse.
Charge nurse.
Charge nurse.
The charge of the Light Brigade.
Charge of the Light Brigade.
Charger.
Charger.
Charge sheet.
Charge sheet.
Chariot.
Chariot.
Charioteer.
Charioteer.
Charisma.
Charisma.
He lacks charisma.
Charismatic.
Charismatic.
Martin Luther King was a very charismatic speaker.
Charitable.
Charitable.
Charitable groups. A charitable donation. A charitable view of his actions.
Charity.
Charity.
Several charities sent aid to the flood victims.
All the money raised by the concert will go to charity.
The children raised over £200 for charity.
Refugees living on charity.
Her pride wouldn't allow her to accept charity.
Mother Teresa's works of charity.
Newspaper reports showed him little charity.
Charity shop.
Charity shop.
Charlady.
Charlady.
Charlatan.
Charlatan.
Charleston.
Charleston.
Charlie horse.
Charlie horse.
Charlie.
Charlie.
Charm.
Charm.
Joe's boyish charm.
The charm of this small southern city.
She turned on the charm to all the men.
The room had no windows and all the charm of a prison cell. The room had no windows and all the charm of a prison cell. A charm bracelet.
A small gold horseshoe worn as a lucky charm.
The new sales program has worked like a charm. We were charmed by the friendliness of the local people.
A story that has charmed generations of children.
Charmed.
Charmed.
Charmed circle.
Charm circle.
Politicians outside the charmed circle.
Charmer.
Charmer.
Even at 10 years old, he was a real charmer.
Charming.
Charming.
A charming little Italian restaurant.
Harry can be very charming.
Prince Charming.
Prince Charming.
Charm school.
Charm school.
Charnel house.
Charnel house.
Charred.
Charred.
The charred remains of a body.
Chart.
Chart.
A chart showing last year's sales.
A weather chart.
The theatre's seating chart.
Her new single went straight to #1 in the pop charts.
Brooks again topped the charts.
The Beatles' first chart hit.
Scientists have been charting temperature changes in the oceans. Scientists have been charting temperature changes in the oceans.
Each team was responsible for making its own decisions and charting its own course. Their next single didn't chart.
Charter.
Charter.
The freedoms embodied in the UN Charter.
Boats available for charter.
A charter service.
The town's charter was granted in 1838.
Reducing the number of police is just a thieves' charter. Reducing the number of police is just a thieves' charter.
We chartered a boat to take us to some of the smaller islands.
Chartered.
Chartered.
Charter flight.
Charter flight.
Charter member.
Charter member.
Charter school.
Charter school.
Chartreuse.
Chartreuse.
Chart topping.
Chart topping.
Charwoman.
Charwoman.
Cherry.
Cherry.
Banks were chary of lending the company more money. Banks were chary of lending the company more money.
Chase.
Chase.
The dogs saw him running and chased him. Kids chasing around the house.
The police chased the suspect along Severn Avenue.
A gang of boys chased after her, calling her names.
The men were chased off by troops who fired warning shots. The men were chased off by troops who fired warning shots. Anne went to chase the dog out of the garden. Anne went to chase the dog out of the garden.
Top graduates from the university are chased by major companies. Top graduates from the university are chased by major companies. Reporters chasing after a story.
I was chasing around getting everything organized.
Sometimes a girl wants to be chased, Amelia said.
Chased silver.
We had to chase down everyone we'd sold a bike to. We had to chase down everyone we'd sold a bike to.
David hasn't paid yet. You'd better chase him up.
Can you chase up those photos for me tomorrow? Can you chase up those photos for me tomorrow?
A high-speed car chase.
Police spotted the car and gave chase.
The chase after higher-paying jobs. The chase after higher-paying jobs.
Chaser.
Chaser.
A pint of bitter and a whiskey chaser. A pint of bitter and a whiskey chaser.
Chasm.
Chasm.
A rope bridge across the chasm.
The chasm between rich and poor.
Chassis.
Chassis.
Chaste.
Chaste.
She led a chaste, decent life.
A chaste kiss on the cheek.
A chaste nightgown.
Chasten.
Chasten.
Party workers have returned to their hometowns, chastened by their overwhelming defeat. A chastening experience.
Chastise.
Chastise.
You're a fool, she chastised herself.
Chastity.
Chastity.
Chat.
Chat.
John and I sat up until the early hours chatting. John and I sat up until the early hours chatting.
Mary was there, chatting to her mother. Susie chatted away about her social life.
I spent the evening chatting up Liz.
I've had a long chat with Vinny. A chat about the weather.
She was enjoying their friendly little chat.
She used to drop in for a chat quite often.
Chatbot.
Chatbot. Chateau.
Chateau.
Chatelaine.
Chatelaine.
Chatline.
Chatline.
Chatroom.
Chat room.
Chat show.
Chat show.
A TV chat show host.
Chattel.
Chattel.
A society in which women are considered to be chattels.
Chatter.
Chatter.
She chattered away happily until she noticed I wasn't listening.
She chattered excitedly like a child.
We were chattering about the events of last night.
Chatterbox.
Chatterbox.
Chatty.
Chatty.
He was in an unusually chatty mood.
A chatty letter. Chat-up line.
Chat-up line.
Chauffeur.
Chauffeur.
I spent most of the day chauffeuring the kids around.
Chauvinism.
Chauvinism.
Male chauvinism.
National chauvinism.
Chauvinist.
Chauvinist.
He's a bit of a male chauvinist.
A male chauvinist pig.
Chauvinistic.
Chauvinistic.
A chauvinistic dislike of foreigners. Chav. Chav.
Chavvy.
Chavvy.
Cheap.
Cheap.
Cheap rail fares. The cheapest TV on the market. Property is cheaper in Spain than here.
A cheap shop.
The equipment is relatively cheap and simple to use. This coat was dirt cheap.
A cheap and cheerful Italian restaurant. A cheap and cheerful Italian restaurant.
Cheap wine gives me a headache.
Cheap jewellery.
The furniture looked cheap and nasty.
A cheap imitation of the real thing. Gas appliances are usually cheaper to run than electric ones.
For the employer, a part-time workforce means a cheap labour supply. For the employer, a part-time workforce means a cheap labour supply.
She felt cheap and stupid, like a naughty child caught stealing.
You're lying, aren't you? You're so cheap.
His remark was a cheap shot at short people.
Another cheap political stunt.
It was nothing but a cheap trick.
She's too cheap to take a cab.
Bella will sleep with anyone for a cheap thrill.
A cheaply furnished room.
They lived as cheaply as possible.
The relative cheapness of housing.
Airfares to Africa don't come cheap. Airfares to Africa don't come cheap.
I bought this house because it was going cheap. She used to get meat cheap at the butcher's.
They're selling linen off cheap in Lewis's. They're selling linen off cheap in Lewis's.
A clean environment cannot be had on the cheap. A clean environment cannot be had on the cheap.
Holidaying on the cheap. Cheapen.
Cheapen.
The good harvest that year cheapened the costs of some raw materials.
She never compromised or cheapened herself.
Cheapo.
Cheapo.
A cheapo camera.
Cheapskate.
Cheapskate.
The cheapskate didn't even pay for the cab.
Cheat.
Cheat.
He had cheated in the test by using a calculator.
Don't look at my cards, that's cheating. She claimed that I cheated at chess.
Illegal workers are often cheated by employers.
She cheated her aged aunt out of her fortune. She felt cheated and used. She felt cheated and used.
The Italian ace cheated death in a spectacular 100 miles an hour crash. The Italian ace cheated death in a spectacular 100 miles an hour crash. The magazine claims that almost half of Britain's women cheat on their partners.
His addiction has turned him into a cheat and a liar.
Check.
Check.
Check the tiles carefully before you buy them.
A first rule in solving any mystery is to check the facts. A first rule in solving any mystery is to check the facts.
Fill in the cash book carefully and always check your calculations. Fill in the cash book carefully and always check your calculations.
Check that all the doors are locked securely.
Let me just check whether the potatoes are cooked.
They paused to check how the other climbers were getting on.
I checked the typing for errors.
Turn the tap on and check for leaks.
You must check the evidence against other sources and decide if it's reliable.
Positive test results are double-checked to make absolutely sure.
You must check the evidence against other sources and decide if it's reliable.
Positive test results are double-checked to make absolutely sure.
I'm not authorized to give you a refund. I'll have to check first.
Make a phone call to check that you're writing to the right person. Call the factory to check whether the beds can be delivered today. Check with your doctor before going on a diet.
I had to check the urge to laugh out loud.
He grinned and then checked himself, not wanting to upset Jack.
The police are failing to take adequate measures to check the growth in crime. The police are failing to take adequate measures to check the growth in crime.
Any luggage over 5 kilos must be checked. Passport? Check. Ticket? Check.
Check in 2 hours before the flight.
He checked in at the Europa Hotel.
Airline employees were checking in passengers. I said goodbye and went to check in my suitcases.
He just called to check in and tell them how he was doing.
One by one, he checked them off on his register.
Honey, can you go upstairs and check on the kids?
My neighbour comes in once a week to check on things and feed the fish. He wanted to check on the girl's story.
I made a phone call to check out his address.
Check it out with your boss before you do anything.
His credit record checks out.
If I hear about a website that sounds interesting, I check it out.
Hey, check out that car.
I'll check them out as potential employers. I'll check them out as potential employers.
We checked out at noon.
The library allows you to check out 6 books at a time. The library allows you to check out 6 books at a time.
They spent the rest of the morning checking over their equipment. They spent the rest of the morning checking over their equipment.
I'd like the doctor to check you over and do a few tests.
Don't worry, no one is going to check up on you.
Dustin called me to check up on some facts. Dustin called me to check up on some facts.
The need for tighter checks on arms sales. Conduct regular checks on your water quality. I decided to run a check on all personnel. I keep a careful check on my blood pressure.
Have a check in your bag first and see if it's there.
The airport's routine security checks. Random drug checks. A spot check on the accounts. You must learn to keep your emotions in check.
Attempts to keep global warming in check.
He made an effort to hold himself in check.
Higher interest rates will act as a check on public spending. Higher interest rates will act as a check on public spending. A shirt with brown and black checks. A shirt with brown and black checks.
A blue cotton check dress.
A check for $30.
Can I pay by check?
Checkbook.
Checkbook.
Checkbox. Checkbox. Checkbox.
Check card.
Check card.
Check digit. Check digit.
Checked.
Checked.
A checked blouse.
Checker.
Checker.
Checkerboard.
Checkerboard.
Checkered.
Checkered.
A red and white checkered tablecloth. A checkered marble floor. This is an unusual building with a checkered history.
Checkered flag.
Checkered flag.
Check-in.
Check-in.
The check-in desk. Make sure you're at the check-in by 5:30.
Ask your travel agent about check-in times.
Checking account.
Checking account.
Checklist.
Checklist.
The guide contains a useful checklist of points to look for when buying a car.
Checkmate.
Checkmate.
The king is checkmated and the game is over.
Checkout.
Checkout.
Why can't they have more checkouts open?
The checkout assistant.
Checkout is at noon.
Checkpoint.
Checkpoint.
They had to cross 5 military checkpoints.
Checkroom.
Checkroom.
Checksum character. Checksum character.
Checkup.
Checkup.
It's important to have regular checkups.
Cheddar.
Cheddar.
Cheek.
Cheek.
Lucy stretched up to kiss his cheek.
Billy had rosy cheeks and blue eyes.
Her tear-stained cheeks.
Julie's cheeks flushed with pleasure at the compliment.
A red-cheeked, plump old fellow.
I've had enough of your cheek.
He had the cheek to make personal remarks and expect no reaction. He had the cheek to make personal remarks and expect no reaction. She's got a cheek. She just goes on till she gets what she wants.
It's a bit of a cheek asking me for money.
What a cheek. Of course I read the instructions.
An expensive French restaurant cheap by jowl with a cheap clothes shop. An expensive French restaurant cheap by jowl with a cheap clothes shop. You can cheek some teachers and they just don't do anything.
Cheekbone.
Cheekbone.
She had high cheekbones and green eyes.
Cheeky.
Cheeky.
You did that on purpose, you cheeky little devil. Now don't be cheeky to your elders, young woman. A chubby 5-year-old with a cheeky grin.
He grinned cheekily.
Cheap.
Cheap.
Chicks cheaping for food.
Cheer.
Cheer.
A great cheer went up from the crowd.
So let's give a cheer to the kids who passed their exams.
The final whistle was greeted with triumphant cheers from players and spectators.
3 cheers for the birthday girl.
Hello, said Auguste cheerily. His good cheer was not returned.
Christmas cheer.
Everybody cheered when the firemen arrived. Everybody cheered when the firemen arrived.
The audience was shouting and cheering.
The spectators cheered him wildly.
By late afternoon there came news that cheered them all.
Government policy towards higher education contains little to cheer university students.
Cheering news. They gathered round the swimming pool and cheered her on.
Cheer up, the worst is over.
They cheered up when they saw us coming along. Here's a bit of news that will cheer you up. You both need cheering up, I think.
I bought some posters to cheer the place up a bit.
Cheerful.
Cheerful.
She's feeling more cheerful today.
I'm making a real effort to be cheerful despite everything.
I'm Robin, she said with a cheerful smile.
It does me good to see a cheerful face.
A bright, cheerful Italian restaurant.
There was a cheerful picture on the wall.
The house has a cheerful atmosphere.
She was a cheerful and agreeable companion.
Before the accident, he had been cheerful and confident. A cheerful approach to the job.
He smiled cheerfully.
Morning, she called cheerfully.
Cheerio.
Cheerio.
Cheerleader.
Cheerleader.
She was a popular cheerleader at the University of Texas.
She was our cheerleader, teacher, and friend.
Cheerleading.
Cheerleading. A cheerleading camp for girls.
The conventions have become nothing but cheerleading rallies for the presidential campaign.
Cheerless.
Cheerless.
This is a cold, cheerless place.
The day was grey and cheerless.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheery.
Cheery.
She gave me a cheery smile.
He left them with a cheery wave.
Cheese.
Cheese.
Half a kilo of cheese.
A cheese sandwich.
Sprinkle with the grated cheese.
A selection of English cheeses.
Cheeseboard.
Cheeseboard.
The meal was finished with the cheeseboard and a dish of fruit.
Cheeseburger.
Cheeseburger.
Cheesecake.
Cheesecake.
A slice of cheesecake.
Cheesecloth.
Cheesecloth.
Cheesed off.
Cheesed off.
You sound really cheesed off.
Cheese pairing.
Cheese pairing.
Cheesy.
Cheesy.
Cheesy sauces.
A cheesy soap opera.
A cheesy grin.
Cheetah.
Cheetah.
Chef.
Chef.
A master chef.
A pastry chef.
Chelsea bun.
Chelsea bun.
Chemical.
Chemical.
The organic chemicals industry.
Synthetic chemicals.
The chemical composition of bleach.
A chemical analysis of the soil. Chemically, the substances are similar.
Chemical engineering.
Chemical engineering.
Chemical reaction.
Chemical reaction.
The chemical reaction between ozone and chlorine.
Chemical warfare.
Chemical warfare.
Chemical weapon.
Chemical weapon.
Chemise.
Chemise.
Chemist.
Chemist.
Chemistry.
Chemistry.
It's obvious that there's a very real chemistry between them.
A person's body chemistry.
Chemistry set.
Chemistry set.
Chemists.
Chemists. Chemotherapy.
Chemotherapy.
Chenille.
Chenille.
Check.
Check.
They sent me a cheque for £100. Can I pay by cheque?
You could write her a cheque.
Checkbook.
Checkbook.
Checkbook journalism.
Checkbook journalism.
Check card.
check card,
checkered,
checkered,
checkered flag,
checkered flag,
checkers,
checkers,
cherish,
cherish,
He cherished his privacy. I cherish the memory of that day. Willingness to re-examine cherished beliefs.
In marriage, a man promises to cherish his wife.
his most cherished possession.
Chernobyl,
Chernobyl,